Live! What's going on, team? Happy Sunday. Hope you're having a great Sunday so far. I want to share with you guys today how $16 headphones and $29 sunglasses have changed my life. And these are relatively, I'll say, on the recent side. These have changed my life in the last maybe 3 to 4 months. These have changed my life over the last, gosh, how long has this been now? Since I want to say 2018. So that's like 5-6 years. If you guys are here, feel free to say hi. If you're watching this on replay, of course, shoot me a message and say replay in the comments as well, and we'll get rolling. Also, before we jump in, I want to be able to provide you guys links if it's interesting. And also, I'm going to tag everyone here just in case there's any interest at all in people seeing this. Come say hey. We are live. Oh, I said we are live and I tagged someone by accident. Okay. Oh, I think I was on my wife's account. Anyway, we're ready. So this is how, I'll start with the headphones. Actually, I'll save the headphones for last because you guys might not know about these, but I want to talk about the glasses. So these aren't sunglasses per se. What they are is blue blockers. So you might have heard of blue blockers before, you may not have. But some people use blue blockers during the day if they're on their computer a lot to block blue light so that their eyes aren't as stimulated through the day. But I use them before bed. Now you might say to yourself, you probably look so silly going around your house at night starting at 7 p.m. like this when it's dark outside. And to that I say, I don't care how I look. I care how I perform. Pretty much what blue blockers have done for me is they have improved my sleep quality and allowed me to be consistently tired at the same time. Now, of course, if you have you have overnights and different types of schedules like that, I can totally appreciate how you can't go to sleep at the same time every night. But I will say, if you have the opportunity to, even on the weekends, blue blockers helps me get tired faster because essentially by not taking any blue light from, right, even as the sun goes down, from the lights, from TVs, from electronics, if let's say I'm not going to put them away, the blue blockers will block any blue spectrum of light so that my melatonin production kicks up so that I feel more tired since putting them on, right? And that has been something so simple, but yet so profound in my, I'll say, wellness and health journey. They cost $29. You can get them for like $14 on Amazon. But I like this one. It's a little more expensive, but they're kind of like rounded. They kind of round like that. So that way I don't see anything as much in my peripheral. I think some of the cheaper ones are just like flat. So highly recommend it. And I would be interested to know, oh my God, you take them off and everything's so blue. I would be interesting to know, have you ever heard of this? Have you ever tried it? I tell you what, it seems silly, but man, it is freaking profound, or has been for me. Have you ever heard of blue blockers? Would you ever try them? And if you're interested, just let me know and I can put a link. This is not a commission link. I'm not going to make money from this. This is not a sponsored video. These are just two things that have really impacted my life profoundly. And if you guys are here, feel free to say hi. I know 8 of you are here. I'd love to have a conversation on this Sunday. I don't want to just talk at you for, 10 minutes or whatever. So second thing that has absolutely changed my life is sound canceling headphones. Now, these aren't sound canceling headphones like maybe that play music. These are just literally construction headphones. Now, these ones cost $16. They make fun. My son loves when I make that noise with them. These are just $16. I actually might invest in a pair that has even more sound depletion, I guess is the word. Oh, I see some comments coming in. Hey. Let me just scroll back to that. I'm scrolling. I just want to see who said it. Robert, good to see you. Pamela, good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So these have changed my life for a couple of reasons. Number one, they have made meditation easier. Now, meditation is not what you think it is, or may not be what you think it is. A lot of people think meditation is like sitting down and like not thinking of either anything and they can discipline themselves to do that, or they think that it's some out of reach experience that they don't know how to do yet. And I'm here to say that meditation is probably one of the easiest things to do, because all you have to do is sit there and you allow your thoughts to happen. Now, some people say, well, meditation doesn't work for me because when I sit down, all I do is think. Well, that's the point. The reason these have changed my life so much is actually less about these, and it's more about it allows me to be quiet. And I do this probably 3 to 4 times a day. And the deal I have with myself is 5 minutes. And it started with 1 minute, but now I'm up to 5 minutes. So the deal with myself is 5 minutes. And if I want to go longer, I can. But I sit down, I put them on, and I just be. And here's why this is so impactful and why it's changed my life. Is it has given me an opportunity through the day to close my mental tabs, which otherwise remain open. How many times is it time to go to bed and you lay your head on the pillow and you're so tired and you're like, and then your brain just lights up and it's like, wait, what about all these tabs that are open, right? And the way I like to think about our brain is it's kind of like a Google Chrome browser where we're opening tabs all day long. And if things don't get resolved, if we don't close out a tab, what happens to our system? It starts to get all, I'll say, stimulated, and we have to close the tabs. And if we don't close the tabs and there's something there that may be stressing us out, well, guess what? It's going to wake up in the middle of the night. And then we say, oh my gosh, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. I need to medicate. I need to, do something completely different to get better sleep or not wake up in the middle of the night, or let me go to my doctor to find out why I'm waking up in the middle of the night. And a lot of the time it's just, right. It's a signal. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, it's funny. Little side note. I remember hearing when I was younger, you get ulcers, stomach ulcers, not from what you eat, but from what's eating you, right? What's eating us. And usually if we're waking up in the middle of the night, it's a signal that there's something unresolved in our mind, that there's something unresolved, right? And here's the thing, to resolve doesn't even necessarily mean that thing has to be behind you, like it's completed, but you have to know that there's a path to be able to fix it, right? So there's enough power sometimes in just writing down how you're going to get something done. And that can allow the tab to close in your brain. I don't know if this makes sense or if it helps at all. Let me know in the comments. I did see Roseanne said, good morning. One of the doctors and anesthesiologist that I work with in surgery wears those pink glasses to save her eyes from the ultraviolet lights in the OR. It's powerful. I will say, like, these are probably, they're fantastic to work. I actually have never worked with them during the day, but maybe I should test that. But for nighttime, it's so powerful for me because I have an alarm that goes off on my phone. It sounds funny. I don't set alarms to wake up in the morning. I set alarms to go to bed at night. That sounds so funny. But I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night because I wake up at 6, start to work. And I have an alarm that goes off at 7 o'clock. And at 7 o'clock, that's 2 hours before I should be sleeping. And that's essentially my 15 to 30 minute buffer. Finish what I'm doing. Put these bad boys on. So 90 minutes before bed, right? These are on. And all the lights in my house turn off. Candlelight only, which is red light, right? Not blue light. So it doesn't stimulate, doesn't reduce the production of melatonin. And then around like 8 o'clock every night, I'm freaking tired. And it's great. And it's very good. And I love it. So highly recommend these. But going back to this for a second, I'll take these back off. Woo! Oh man, it's a trip every time I take those off. Everything's so blue. Which blue light's not bad. I will say that too. Blue light's not bad. You should be getting out in the sun and hitting your retinas with that blue light. It will, one of the biggest actions that you can do to regulate your sleep cycle or to get better sleep is actually get blue light, but at a specific time of the day. When you wake up in the morning, you want to get outside and have that blue light, have that sun. You don't want to stare at the sun, obviously, but you want to have it hit your face. You want to be outside for 5-15 minutes at the minimum, if possible. And I've had clients in the past that, yes, they work 7-hour shifts. They go into work when it's dark and they leave work when it's dark. I totally understand that. but you're probably going to go to the bathroom at least one time per day, in which case you can, sneak to the window or open the window and maybe get hit. Of course, I'm like half joking, but if you do have any break at all, I highly recommend spending it, even if it's cold outside, 5 minutes outside, take your hat off. I almost said take your shirt off. Like, obviously, if you're at work, you can't do that. But what I mean is, like, have as much skin exposed as possible so that more of it can hit you, right? It was interesting, not to get too far off topic, but I was reading a study recently, probably around a month or so ago, talking about how our skin cells have light receptors in them. And I'm not an expert to talk about that. I am, but I just was reading it. I thought it was really interesting. Actually, I should probably dive more into it. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Okay, comment came in. Let's see what it says. Wait, where'd it go? I can't see who said it, but you need to meet my anesthesiologist. He has the same philosophy regarding getting sunshine on your face 5 to 10 minutes each day in the morning. It's so powerful, right? I mean, so like there's a lot of things we can do for free that don't take a lot of time that can absolutely revolutionize life, right? And one of those is sleep. Although that does take a little bit of time, it doesn't take a lot of effort and it's free. But yeah, I mean, going back to this for a second. So meditation has been one of the most powerful things for my life. And you don't need to, I think, kind of like exercise, I think that sometimes we think that in order to make something effective, we have to do it for a large amount of time. For example, in order for exercise to be worth it, I need to exercise for an hour, or I need to go to a gym, or I need to do this. And it's like, no, if you're just not doing anything yet, just step outside for 2 minutes and like go for a little walk for 2 minutes, right? We have to set the threshold really low. If you remember what we talked about before with creating habits, the most important thing when we create habits, there's 4 pieces, right? The first thing is I was talking to Coach Rachel, and Coach Rachel and I are going to do a podcast on habits on this Friday coming up. TOAC. She had a fun analogy for it. So T is the trigger, right? What's going to trigger you to do that action? TOAC 1 is one small thing. So what is that small thing you're going to do? It has to be small, right? If you're going to set and create a new habit, it's got to be something really small. I don't believe in this idea of like, hey, we're going to go from 0 to 60, because what happens if, here's a good analogy. What happens if you're riding a bike for the first time and your dad put you, or your mom put you on that bike, no training wheels, and just sent you down a hill? What's going to happen? You're going to crash that sucker and it's going to hurt. And that's what happens a lot of the time when we start new things. We want the breakthrough very quickly. And because of that, we go from 0 to 60. So we go from not working out at all to working out 5 days a week, high intensity interval training at a boot camp, and we get injured, or, we just get burnt out. And then we think the problem's with ourselves. But just like how you wouldn't put a child on a bike and send them down a hill going 60 miles an hour without training wheels for the first time. Why would we do that with ourselves, right? We wouldn't. So what we do instead is you start using training wheels. What does that mean for you? Maybe that means 2 to 5 minutes just walking per day, right? So TOAC, right? We have the trigger. What's going to trigger you to do the habit? You have O, which is one small thing. And then you have A, which is, what is the word she used? What's the word she used? TOAC. I can't remember what she used, but I'll use the ones I use. So then we need something to stack the habit too. So for example, if you do, let's say, I'll use lunch. You're going to probably eat lunch every day, or dinner, right? You're going to have one meal a day, hopefully, at least. So what you do is essentially every time after you eat a meal, not necessarily a snack, but a meal, you follow it up with 2 minutes of walking. Why? Well, because you're always going to eat. So it's like when you're finished eating, it just becomes the next thing you do, right? And then you don't need to think about it, because I can promise you that the way that people get to a point where everything we're talking about becomes a lifestyle, and it becomes something that you don't have to think about. And, maybe, people like this in your life that are super fit, and you're like, man, like it seems so easy for you. And it is, because it's a habit now. I don't think about it. And you can get to that same point. It's not some illustrious, like, oh man, like it's impossible to get to. No, you can get there too, but this is how you get there, right? You habit stack. So you stack it to something else. It's crucial. But don't have to go too hard too quick. So the point of all that is with meditation, you don't need to start with 30 minutes every day. Just set a really small goal. Like, I'm going to do it for 60 seconds. And that might seem like, oh, I'm not going to get a lot out of it. Yeah, I mean, you'll get more than if you don't do anything. But 2 minutes. And then I promise you what starts to happen is you do it for 2 minutes and then you're like, well, you're already sitting there for 2 minutes. You're like, I'm already doing it. I'll do it for 3. But the goal or the rule is 2 minutes. And you do it every day and you attach it to something. It sounds funny, but like there's a reason with our free 7-day challenges that the only 3 things we talk about are number 1, sleep, like setting sleep goals. Number 2, protein. And number 3, self-talk. And you might say, self-talk? What self-talk? You want me to, what? I thought this was about like fitness and nutrition and like I got to exercise more. But it all depends on how zoomed out we are. And if you're writing something down, I highly recommend you write this down. How, like, maybe not this exactly. How I know somebody will reach their goal is when I ask them a question and they answer it, I can see how zoomed out they are. What do I mean by that? If somebody's focused on today, next week, or next month, their days are probably numbered. What do I mean? If somebody's talking about next year or 10 years from now, they're going to win. Why? Because when we're focused on today or tomorrow, there's going to be too many ups and downs. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about a goal. So like if we're focused on, okay, I want to lose 2 pounds this week. The problem with that is you can't control what happens, in a week. There's too many variables. You can control your actions. You can't control the result necessarily. But what you can control is zooming out and looking far. So when you're setting up your plan, what you always want to be doing is zooming out and thinking long term. And this is the same type of thinking that we try to instill with each one of our clients, because this is really how long-term transformation happens. It doesn't happen from some super fancy new plan. I can promise you, I've been a transformation coach for coming up on 16 years now. There is no sexy new thing. I can promise you. It's the same stuff. And that's not sexy for me to sell you. But what I am here to say is it works, right? So we do the things that align with human psychology that actually lead to behavioral change, so that this is something that sticks. And whether or not you ever work with us one-on-one coaching is like not my priority here. My priority here is that you get the ideas that allow you to move forward. So kind of, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but going back for just a second, why do we think so much about self-talk? Well, because at the end of the day, if we zoom out far enough, I know that one of the most impactful things to your long-term transformation is your input. If you want to change your results, you have to change your actions. If you want to change your actions, you have to change if you want to change your actions repeatedly, most importantly, you have to change your thinking. And the way you change your thinking is by changing your input. But what a lot of people do is if they want to change their results, they change their actions. But then what happens is enough time goes by, they haven't changed the way they're thinking. And that's important. And because of that, they stop. And I'm trying to keep this pretty high level. But if you want to then change your thinking, you have to change your input. How do you change your input? You change what goes into your brain. How do you change what goes into your brain? Well, you listen to different things. What do you mean? Well, we talk to ourselves 80% of the time. Sounds crazy. Who talks to you the most? You do. And a lot of times we have beliefs that we're not even aware of, that we're just ingraining even deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You probably heard the idea that you can't teach old dogs new tricks. You can. It just takes a lot more repetition to get it done. So what you have to do is change the input with things like this, right? Or other podcasts that essentially you have to identify what is the thinking, like, not to go too into the psychology, right? But if you want to change your thinking, you have to find out what is the thinking you're missing that will help you essentially set you up to where these actions become automatic and then the results become automatic. What is the thinking that you're missing? You can take that step one further back and you can say, what is the input that I'm currently getting or that I'm currently not getting that I need to get? And then also, what is the input I'm getting that is actually not helping me? It's moving me in the other direction. and giving me the thinking I do not want, which is giving me the actions I do not want. I'll give you the easiest example that can be the hardest to change. Aren't you happy you came to this talk? The easiest example is the hardest to change. And I say hardest because sometimes it's spouse, right? But sometimes the input we're getting is from other people. And those other people are spouse, kids, parents, so on and so forth, friends. And they fulfill our needs in some capacity, but in other capacities, they're actually hurting us. You've probably heard the idea that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with most. There's a reason that when one spouse, it says, okay, we're going to start eating healthy and doing all this stuff, and the other spouse is not at that line of thinking, it becomes very hard to essentially stay the course when they are not on the course. That's hard. And it makes sense why then you have one bad day and they're like, you want to get McDonald's? And you're like, fine. Right? Versus if you had someone who is even more fit than you as a partner, then it's like, oh, hey, like, what do you mean? Like, that's not even an option, right? Now, with that in mind, of course, I do recommend that if you are going to start this journey, that you have them on the same page, or that you are able to influence them over time by getting honey, not vinegar. What do I mean? It's really hard to force somebody else to change. They have to be ready. So what I've seen in my experience, one of the best ways to do that is if you have your significant other, you essentially show them that, look, I'm not even doing that much. I'm increasing my steps to start, right? I'm like eating more protein, drinking water. It's not even that hard. They ask you, hey, how's that going? You say, it's not that hard, because it's not. That's the point. And then you start losing weight. Your clothes start fitting better. You start being happier and healthier. And then they go, hold on a second. What are you doing? And now they're starting to get pulled, right? Everyone wants to feel like, in the spouse relationship, right? Or in any relationship, that it's their idea. So instead of forcing it on someone, especially if you're a woman and trying to force it on a man, and the man is masculine, I will say that it is really tough to force something on a masculine man, because they rebel and they get angry and they're like, no, not going to happen. Like, this is the way it's going to, whatever. They like hold their ground. You can tell masculine and feminine polarity depending on if somebody recommends something to their partner and they stand their ground, right? Their stubbornness level, that sort of thing. But none of that is really relevant for this general talk. Anyway, hopefully you like these rants, because if you don't, I apologize. But anyway, back to meditation just for a second. So this whole idea of being able to take 5 minutes, the reason it's changed my life so profoundly is really simply because it allows me to close my mental tabs. I'm sitting down, and as I'm sitting, I'm, just not thinking or I'm just existing. And as I exist, ideas come to me that otherwise would come to me before I fall asleep. And what I do is I just whip out my notepad and I write a note. That's it. I take out my notepad, write a note, and then it gets done. And what it does is it keeps the mental tabs in my brain small, like less tabs, so that I am free to be present. Because if there's anything that I think is, I don't want to say, that's going to sound way too poetic, a fate worse than death. If there's anything that steals our joy, I believe it's not being present, and it's being stuck in our head. And I think one of the ways we can get out of our head and get back into our heart is simply by closing the tabs in the brain. And this was a great way. That's helped me. I set an alarm a few times a day, minimum 5 minutes for me now. It goes off like every 4 hours. It's my opportunity to just sit and be quiet, even if I need to go to my car. Before I had an office, I would just go and sit in the car for 5 minutes, and it's really powerful. Anyway, I don't know if I missed any comments. If I did, I apologize. If you guys are here, I know 9 of you are here. Feel free to ask a question. Feel free to say, hey. I don't want it to feel like I'm just talking to myself. I want to help you guys if I can in any capacity. Any nutrition questions, mindset questions, any questions at all, let me know. I'm here to serve you. Comment came in. I've heard the perspective philosophy that waking up in the night might be our Lord waking us to pray for something or somebody or something in need at the time. Just thought, yeah, cool thought. I follow the philosophy that everything that happens to us in life is a signal. meaning everything that like our body reacts to. For example, if I have a stomach ache, that is a signal. It's a signal that I'm either hungry, it's a signal that I ate something that I shouldn't have, or that like my stomach does not like. It's a signal that maybe I took a supplement my stomach didn't agree with. It's a signal to interpret so that we can do something different, right? And I feel like a lot of us experience pain and don't get anything from it. And I know that sounds a little funny, but what I mean is pain is a signal, discomfort is a signal. It's not meant to just be coped with all the time. Like, we don't have to just take pain and say, like, oh, I need to get rid of this, and look at it as a cause. Pain is not a cause, it's a symptom. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say I'm waking up in the middle of the night. We'll use that example. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. Well, as I'm waking up in the middle of the night, why? For me, the science behind that for me that I think of is, well, there's probably something that my reptilian brain is trying to protect me from. Because if you think about how we've evolved, our reptilian brain is the base of our brain, right? Which means it is the most influential part of our brain. Everyone wants to believe that they're their rational brain, right? But it's your reptilian brain, which is your first brain, your second brain, which is your limbic system or your emotional system, and then it's your rational brain. And it's in order of operations, which means you can't turn off your reptilian brain. For example, if I say to you, hey, stop your heartbeat, go. You can't. Why? Because you're not in control of that system, right? Your rational brain cannot think to be able to stop your heartbeat, right? In normal circumstance, which maybe there's some monk out there that can, but normally for a human, you can't, right? And just like how very similarly, it's hard to think yourself into a different emotion. Meaning if you're feeling angry, sad, depressed, whatever it is, it's really hard to sit there and think yourself out of it with your rational brain, which is why if you ever feel depressed, unhappy, angry, the best thing to do is not sit there and lament. The best thing to do is, number one, get something from it, identify why is this happening? What's like, why, what is the real cause? And then maybe it's a signal something in your life has to change. Or B, once you've done that, if it's something that doesn't have to change, go move your body. Because when you move your body, you change your biochemistry. When you change your biochemistry, guess what happens? That sadness goes away. It's replaced. That anger generally goes away. This is why in Eastern philosophy, they talk about breathing and how your breath is like a kite that control, or your breath is like the wind that controls a kite, and your kite's your emotion. If you want to change how you feel, change your breathing. Right? If you ever look at someone who's depressed or feels depressed in the moment, sad, how do they stand? How do they breathe? Shallow, right? Somebody who's angry, generally not. But if we want to change the way we feel, we have to change our body. But my point of all this is never let a negative emotion or something bad that happens to you, that happens maybe repeatedly, never let it go by without learning something from it. I really do believe life's about growth, life's about learning, and potentially even like optimizing. It's funny, I remember hearing my wife say many years ago, she said one of the best compliments I ever got from her was, you're really just good at being human. And I thought that was funny because it made me think about Mark Zuckerberg being a lizard man and how he pretends to be human. But it's kind of a joke. I don't know if you're familiar with that joke, but got me thinking, like, yeah, that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to optimize systems in my life so that being happy is easier. Right? Like, I don't want to force myself to be happy. I want it to come naturally. But I would be a fool to think that the systems in my life don't impact that. For example, a system in my life where I go to bed and wake up at the same time and get adequate sleep and exercise and drink a lot of water and so on and so forth, it is easier to be happy. And isn't that what we all want? Like, isn't that the goal at the end of the day? Like, aren't we doing all of this, not to get like too heavy on everyone here, but like, Isn't the point of all of this to be happy? Like the reason that we're trying to make more money or like, go further in our career or, look a certain way. It's at the end of the day, it's just to be happy. So it's like, wouldn't we want to set up like systems in our life to be happy? I think the answer is yes. So, potentially look at your life and see what systems do you have in place that no longer serve you? Because a lot of the times the systems that we have are honestly outdated, but it's just, we're doing what we did today because that's what we did yesterday. And it kind of just become, habit. We're creatures of habit. So sometimes we just need to look, take a deep look, take inventory. And that's what Sundays are for me. I highly recommend. A lot of people wait until either the new year or until they have a birthday with a 0 on it to reflect. My ask of you is don't let that happen. Right? That's only a few times to reflect in life, and then before you know it, you don't have much more time to reflect, and that's where all the regrets pour in. And I don't want that to be you. Right? I want you to be able to reflect more now and change things. So my invitation to you is every Sunday, take 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or in the beginning it might be longer because you have a lot more things to change, but take that time to reflect and just say like, am I happy? And it's okay not to be happy. I'm not over here saying like, you need to be happy. That's the purpose of life. Like not necessarily. There are times in life that you're doing something for somebody else and the happiness is, prolonged till later, and that's okay. Or like doing anything hard or anything worthwhile sometimes is hard. Like you're not going to feel joyous in the moment doing it, but the joy is postponed. But joy can't always be postponed, right? So, on this Sunday is usually when I look at kind of my 4 areas: health, wealth, love, and happiness. And I say, hey, where's my health on a scale of 1 to 10? And I just take inventory and I just say, where am I at? What's going on? How am I feeling? And for me recently, I realized that, what, I feel tight. And I know that's a weird thing to feel. I feel tight, but like I just feel like muscle bound. And I'm not a huge guy. I'm a little muscly. I'm not over here saying I ain't got nothing. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel a little muscle bound. And I realized that, oh my gosh, in my training, I'm not really doing a lot of overhead work. I'm not really hanging from bars anymore, doing overhead presses. A lot of my, I've gotten into like a lot of like body weight, movement, stuff like that. I'm like, huh. Well, guess what? My training's changed from that point. I started getting more, okay, I got to add in my overhead stuff, right? But if I didn't take the moment to sit down and acknowledge and sit in myself, I wouldn't have been able to make that change. And you can do that with your physical body, so your health, right? You can do that with your wealth or your finances. You can do that with your love, your relationships. And then all that I think goes into happiness. I don't think we can have happiness without the other 3. And when I say wealth too, I don't necessarily mean like you need to be a uber boober millionaire, billionaire to be able to be secure. I think honestly, that's what we need, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We all just need a foundation of financial security. And if you're on this call, or if you're watching, like you probably have that, right? You probably are a nurse or a healthcare worker. And that's like I don't want to say one of the most stable jobs you can have, but there's always a demand. Even if you're not in the same exact job, there's always going to be demand for you, which is great, right? So you probably have like a foundation of wealth for yourself, which is great. So then it's like, well, where does my focus need to go? Usually, if we're thinking about a wheel, I usually like to put my focus on the area that's the lowest, right? So like think of it like spokes of a wheel, and we're trying to create like a, a flat wheel. No, that doesn't make sense. A round wheel. And if one piece of the wheel is up here and the other piece is down here, that's going to be a really bumpy wheel. So instead, I tend to focus on the area that needs the most help. And I will say happiness is emotions, right? Because like you can have all the health, all the wealth, all the relationships and love, but you can be feeling none of it. And then that's another issue, right? That's like prioritizing happiness and starting to figure out the mind game, right? But anyway, I have sure learned that with losing my son. I have sure learned that with losing my son, but I'm ready to start changing things now. Good for you. I don't know. I apologize because that was 3 minutes ago. What are you referring to? What was that? What is that you learned? I'd love to dive into that with you. And I'm sorry about your son. Sorry about your son, but also I'm uh, what's the word? Excited for you that you're ready to start changing things. I remember, you know, and it's hard for me to talk about this specifically because I've never had a major loss in my life. I lost my grandfather to suicide, but that's about the biggest shock of death that's ever come to me. But I remember hearing this one saying. I think it was like 5 years ago that life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. Life is never happening to you. Life is always happening for you. And I remember hearing that, and at the time, at first, I was like, "Oh, that's so stupid. That's so dumb. Like, what do you mean? Like, all the bad things that happen to me are happening for me? F off," right? Was my first reaction. As you can see, I wasn't in the best mindset at the time. But then over time, it led me down this thought of like, well, that's true. If I do believe that everything in life is a signal, then that's true. Because think about it. The bad thing that happens to me can be viewed as, oh, life is just out to get me and I have no control and I am always just going to feel bad. Versus, hey, this thing happened to me. What can I learn from this? What can I take from this to improve my life? One example of that is like, I'll give you a really small, silly one. Every day for a while, I was getting ready for bed. And as I was getting ready for bed, I would kiss my wife goodnight because I would she'd be up a little bit later. She's more of a night, I don't want to say night owl, but she usually goes to bed an hour or two before me or after me, sorry. So I'd give her a kiss. And now we're on a similar sleep schedule, but this is like kind of when we first had our son. So we would do the kiss thing and then I'd go to bed. And I just noticed that when I would give her that embrace at night, she would be a little more, what's the word? Closed. And when I would ask her, right, that's a signal. So I asked her, hey, why is this the case? And she said, well, I just feel like I'm doing all the nighttime stuff alone. I'm like, what do you mean? And then we found out, oh man, she felt like she was doing a lot of the night stuff, taking care of my son, getting him ready for bed. So I was doing some stuff, but not as much as her at night. And I didn't know it bothered her because our relationship is kind of old gender roles of like, I provide or whatever, and she takes care of the home and a lot of my son. But I listened to the signal and then I was able to put actions in place. And now they're habits that allow her to feel like I support her more, and now we're happier, right? So that's a really silly example, but it's a signal. Like everything that happens to you, any response you get from someone you love, or maybe even someone you don't love, it's a signal. What does this mean? And I feel like as kids, we're inherently curious. We're inherently like, interesting that would happen. Sometimes it's funny because I look at my son, he's 19 months old, and sometimes something will happen that's like he's never seen before, and he's just stunned. Like, for example, I remember the other day, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but my dad was over and like something happened. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he like emoted in a really certain way, or I think it was he made a noise that he never heard before. And instead of my son like reacting in a scared or funny way, he just stared because he was curious. He had never seen this before. And I feel like one of the best ways that we can improve our life is just when things happen to us that maybe aren't that great, we're able to just get curious. Why would they do that? I'll give you an example. I was talking to one of my clients. Actually, this is from now a while ago. I remember a year or two ago, I was working with a client, and she was feeling, really upset at work because I believe it was CNAs that were working with her didn't listen to her and she didn't feel like respected her. And pretty much whenever she'd ask her to do something or ask them to do something, they would pretty much just shoo her off and not do it. And, at the time, her first reaction is, oh, they're just lazy. Why aren't they doing their thing? They're just lazy, or like they hate me. But when you get into the weeds, you can figure out like, oh no, they don't feel respected. Because like, let's look at the real. Is like, when's the last time you think somebody has really complimented them on the work they're doing? And she's like, I'm like, have you ever complimented them? She's like, no. I'm like, yeah. So they probably feel like they're just, I don't want to say like your slave, but like to a degree, they just feel like they're, you're what is it? You're I don't want to say errand boy, but like, they don't feel appreciated. So yeah, they probably are just doing the bare minimum. So it's like, what if we could set some, what if you could show them how much you appreciate them, right? What if it doesn't take that much effort or time, but every time they do something, you just tell them like, hey, I really liked, there's 3 ways that we give compliments, right? Sincere, enthusiastic, and specific. And when you do that, people feel good. And it doesn't take a lot of extra time or effort, and it makes you feel really good too. And it's crazy because over time, guess what? She had a much more pleasurable experience at work because the CNA she worked with responded to her and they worked well together. And it was a very symbiotic time. But it's tough when we feel like everything is happening to us, when in turn, it's like, if it's people oriented, we find out that, yeah, it actually has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them. Right? So it's kind of interesting. But anyway, kind of rambling a little bit. Do you have some good self-help motivational books you would recommend? I got tons. So if you're looking for practical application with habit formation, I recommend Atomic Habits by James Clear. A lot of what we do with our clients is based on that for behavioral change. I also recommend the book Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, another great book on habits. If you're thinking about learning foundational frameworks or beliefs that allow you to change your models of the world and how you view it, I recommend Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. That's a book that I've read a few times in my early days. That's helped me tremendously. Other books. When I was very young, when I was 15 years old, I read the book, or actually I didn't read it. I listened to, and that goes for the other one too. I listened to the audiobook, See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar is no longer with us, but he had a very special place in my heart because I remember specifically that was the beginning of my quote, self-help or personal development journey. And I remember hearing him say, like, this is just for context, like, if you think that you're too far gone, or if you think like, oh man, like I can't change from where I am. I had the worst view of myself when I was 15 years old. It was bad. To the point that, or 13 years old. And I remember thinking to myself, so let me tell you what happened. So Zig starts the tape with, I'm Zig Ziglar, and you are born to win. Or that wasn't See You at the Top. This was Born to Win. You are born to win. You are endowed with the seeds of greatness. And you can, anything that you want in life, you can have, and anything you want to be in life, you can be, right? And I remember the first few times I'd hear that, I remember thinking to myself, if he knew that I'd be listening, he wouldn't have said that. And that's how low I thought of myself. But something really amazing happened. I listened to that on my Sony Walkman every day, riding to school on the bus. And if I missed the bus, listening on the car ride. And I remember after listening to it for about 3 to 4 months, when he said that, it was the first time I remember it profoundly in the back of the bus where I was sitting. He said, you're born to win. You are endowed with the seeds of greatness. And I remember thinking to myself, maybe he's right. And that's all it took. My record player in my mind started to change. And how I viewed myself started to change. And that was powerful. Very powerful. So, highly recommend Tony Robbins. Zig Ziglar is always fun too. He's got a lot of fun stories. But yeah, good stuff. I've learned, I already said that. I have learned to look at the things in my life to see what I can do better. Yeah, that's what life's about, right? Life's about constant self-improvement, in my opinion. It's about, but doing it in such a way that doesn't overwhelm us. Because the fact of the matter is, like, I'll use weight loss as an example. A lot of us have tried and failed, and we haven't been rewarded for the actions we've been taking. Because of that, it hurts to start again, especially when every time you've started, you've been essentially given pain, right? Like, imagine every time you start something new, you are given pain. Yeah, I wouldn't want to start new too. And that's the real position a lot of us are in, where we've tried a lot of things in the past and we don't think like, oh my God, like, why would I even do something? Like, it's not like, and we start to rationalize that we can't do it because of either our age or our hormones or because of things that are out of our control. But at the end of the day, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you believe that those are true, you will never try again. Right? And if we really want to make a breakthrough in 2024 and have it be, be something that lasts forever, we have to start. And the only way we start is if we can essentially have a level of belief that this time can be different. And I'm here to tell you it can. Now, don't go do the same thing, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You're smarter than that. You're not insane. So when you start again, if you're not where you want to be yet, my advice to you is do something different. Take the tiny habits route. Take the route that allows you to, instead of thinking about your weight loss or your body transformation in days, weeks, or months, think about it in years. That's the key. Our goal in this group, or with this business even, is to impact 100,000, which is a big number, 100,000 RNs and healthcare workers to transform their body and sustain it forever. I already know the math. That's not a year goal. That's not a 5-year goal. It's probably not even a 10-year goal. It's going to take a long time. So when I take actions that are kind of decade forward looking. When I make a decision, I'm trying not to make a decision for, today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter. I'm trying to look at it years from now. Will this decision help us achieve that mission years from now? If the answer is yes, then we do it. Whether that means, moving forward with a coach, or maybe a coach is on the team that now we don't move forward with. Or maybe there's a coach in our team that we deem was great in the beginning, but is kind of unethical or whatever it is. Like, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing is setting us up for that long-term mission of 100,000 people, and, is that number arbitrary? I mean, maybe we could do 1 million, but I feel like 100,000, if I'm doing an order of magnitude of like 10,000, I feel like is very doable. And we're almost at 10,000 people in this group, which is crazy. I can't even imagine that we're at I think this week we'll break 7,000 people in this group, 7,000 RNs and other healthcare workers. But I would say that 95% of us are RNs in here, which is pretty amazing. Some husbands and whatnot sneak in. But yeah, it's powerful. So like 10,000, like, who knows? That could even be, if we're just going off the metrics of this group, it could be this week, or I'm sorry, not this week, this year. But 100,000, well, that makes us look a little further out. That's like this decade, maybe even next decade. And 1 million, that just seems very, very, very far. So we wanted a mission that would allow us to feel like we can achieve it, but at the same time wasn't so close that we'd hit it so soon. Comment came in. I started looking at the change of trying to get healthy and lose weight as a lifestyle change instead of a diet. That's what it takes. So I have, you guys have probably heard the story of Kim before, or maybe you haven't actually, because if you're here, you may not have. Let me share this with you really quick, because I don't know, it might help inspire you. So one of our clients, Kim, which I don't know if this is too small. I don't know if you can see that. I wanted to zoom in so you could see the writing right there. Let me see. Can you see that writing? I'm not sure if you can. But Kim, was a client of ours. She lost, she had a funny story actually. Her story was, when I first met with her, she only wanted to lose like 10 pounds. I'm like, yeah, what's the goal? Where do you want to be? She's like, I just want to lose 10 pounds. I just want to feel better. And I'm like, okay, cool. I said, but what's the final goal? Where do you really want to be? She said, I don't know, maybe 15 pounds. And I said, okay, cool. Yeah. But like the weight loss is great, but like, where do you want to be? Like, where do you want, like, what are you envisioning? Where do you want your body to be? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you think is seeing in your head when you see like you at your goal? And she said, I'd really like to be back in a bikini, but I've already had 2 kids and I'm 40 and I don't see that happening. I said, yeah, I get that. And it was just one step at a time. And that one step led to another, led to another. Took her about 9 months. She lost 33 pounds, got back into her bikini, and she's sustained it now for over 7 years. But the most important part about that is the reason I brought it up is in the message below, it says she did all this without focusing on dieting, but instead by thinking about changing lifestyle. And that's what it takes. It's changing lifestyle. If you can optimize for anything in this journey, it is optimizing for starting and never stopping again. A lot of people will start and they'll start with the most effective action, meaning whatever's going to get the most results in the least amount of time. But the problem is usually that also leads to a behavior of stopping because it's too hard. And because let's be real, you're not a full-time athlete. You cannot make your whole life focus on this one thing. And that's also why usually in our early 20s, it's easier to do it. Why? Because we don't have as much responsibilities, but as we get older, we're married, we have kids, our job is more demanding of us. And we're also getting a little bit older, which means that, we're, I'll say, sometimes on a flywheel that is a vicious cycle instead of a virtuous one. So, if there's anything you can optimize for, it's for starting and never stopping again. That's the key. How you do that is by small incremental changes, the least effort that leads to the best reward, so that you can stack and get to this point that you feel pulled towards these actions. You don't need to rely on willpower. That's how you win. If you're trying to win this game on willpower, how long can you keep a muscle flexed for? Not very long, right? Eventually, it'll give out. And when it gives out, we stop. So hopefully this has been beneficial today. I've really enjoyed spending time with you and spending time with me and reading some comments. Any other comments before we finish out? Let me know. We're going to be doing a few other podcasts like this week at like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm really excited this week because we're going to be bringing on our coaching team. So a lot of you just see me. You just see me and it's like us talking and it's fun. It's great. But we have some amazing coaches that I've been privileged enough to bring onto our team. Coach Rachel, Coach Charity, and Coach Sharon, who have all been 10 years plus experience coaches. And I just have one view of this. And we share a lot of the same beliefs, but I really want to highlight them so that you guys can learn from them as well. So expect this week to see them a bunch. They're awesome, and come with your questions. And we're here to serve. Our goal here is to impact 100,000 people. And, I think we can get there. I really do. So hopefully you're having a great day. Hopefully you have an awesome day as well. And just keep in mind too, if this was the last day of your 7-day challenge, you can, make sure you're thinking about how to keep this going for the long term. Remember, this isn't about next week or next month. This is about next year. This is about 2 years from now. This is about 10 years from now. So keep in mind that long-term thinking, and I promise you, you will win. Promise. You will win. Love you guys, and enjoy your Sunday. See you soon. And I'll leave a link somewhere, either above or below, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching. You can apply to work with us and see if it's a good fit. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.